Hi, this is Kara from the Special Needs Mom podcast.
And this is Angela from Especially Organized, Sensible Solutions for Special Needs Moms.
We have this heart for special needs moms. And so we thought, you know what, let's combine forces. And we have come up with what we're calling the Purge Party. And you can pretty much guess what it is. It's a party where we're going to come together and we're going to purge or, in general, accomplish a goal, a small goal together. So we have set this for January 27th, starting at 8 o'clock for my Pacific Coast people,
which means 11 o'clock for all of you on the East Coast. So this is an opportunity. If you have something on your to-do list that has just been stuck there and you are wanting to move it up on the list, you're wanting to tackle, maybe it's a space or an area of your home or a category in your home that has just needed a little time and attention. This is your opportunity for you to be online with us while you work and have access for us to help you answer your questions, help guide you, and just serve you for those 2 hours.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you can tell like what we've designed is just this very high level of support for that project that you just haven't been able to tackle on your own. The thing that we are envisioning is that you get to leave this purge party feeling so accomplished because you did the thing. You started the year off getting that thing done that you were stuck on last year. And so it's a momentum builder, if you will. You can go ahead and sign up. We have a link ready for you. And we are offering this for $40 for the whole experience.
Absolutely. And we hope you'll join us. I think it's going to be really fun. It's going to be a great group of moms of special needs kids. So we all get each other. We all have an understanding of what it's like to have something on our to-do list, but just we haven't been able to tackle it yet. So I hope that you will join us. We're super excited to bring this to you, and we are thrilled to work with you.
All right. We'll see you all there. Hi, I'm Kara, life coach, wife, and mom to 4 incredible and unique children. It wasn't all that long ago that my son received a diagnosis that had my world come crashing down. I lacked the ability to see past the circumstances, which felt impossible, and the dreams I once had for my life and family felt destroyed. Fast forward past many years of surviving and not at all thriving, and you'll see a mom who trusts that she can handle anything that comes her way and has access to the power and confidence that once felt so lacking. I created the Special Needs Mom podcast to create connection and community with moms who find themselves feeling trapped and with no one who really understands. My intention is to spark the flare of possibility in your own life and rekindle your ability to dream. This isn't a podcast about your special needs child. This is a podcast about you. If you are a mom who feels anxious, alone, or stuck, then you are in the right place. Welcome. Hello and welcome to the Special Needs Mom podcast. Here we are in early December, and I'm bringing this interview style episode to you because I saw something that Billie Short, who was our guest, posted, I think last month. And I thought to myself, she's the perfect one. She's the perfect one to bring what I think is a very helpful conversation to this season of life as a special needs mom, specifically referring to the holiday season. I forgot to do it last week. I'm trying to bring a funny little story about a day in the life just to kind of, I don't know, pull back the curtain of what our family looks like, because I think it's going to help you change the narrative in your life of like, oh, every family looks like a mess, like ours. So here's the picture I want to paint for you of the funny story. It's actually not so funny, but I do think it is something I'm laughing at because that's just the best option I have. So I want you to picture this. Last week, our church did an event called Carols and Candlelight. This event is clearly Christmas inspired, and so the idea is everyone gathers. We're going to sing carols. We're going to have cute little lights, and there's different things like camel rides. They go all out. Camel rides and petting zoos. And so there's a lot of people at this event and, you know, a big crowd singing and doing the performance. And because the church campus is significantly large, Levi asked to use his chair, his wheelchair, to go there because he's a part-time wheelchair user. And so I said, of course, we had the chair. And because of Levi's physique in combination with his chair, it ends up to be quite a mass to be with. So it's a little bit hard to navigate among a crowd because, again, it's just pretty big. So we're positioned over on kind of the side of the main area underneath a light because Levi wanted to be warm, which made sense. But again, trying to like negotiate this chair I was already a little bit flustered. Like, how can I move enough people out of the way to get Levi to where he can see and be warm and then have my whole family be around him? So we were working on this. We're watching and participating in the Christmas carols. Levi's really into Christmas. So like this is his big event. He's super excited. And my other kids are happy, but could kind of care less. And so we're all standing there watching, and all of my children seem to have magnets in their hands when it comes to touching Levi's chair. So I have Levi in his chair, and then I have 3 other children, so 6 hands total, touching and pushing and leaning up against Levi's chair, to which Levi responds every time, "Stop it," and yelling. This is not a quiet kind of thing. And so then you have enter me, the mom in the picture, trying to teach all of my children, my 15-year-old and my 10-year-old and my 5-year-old, okay, we don't touch Levi's chair. Consider it part of his body. Take your hands off the chair. And my kids just seemed to really not get this concept. So they continue to lean up against the chair and touch the chair until I continued to ask them to stop touching the chair. And then one of my children responds back with a raised volume, if you will, and storms off. So here we are in the middle of singing Silent Night. All is calm. And then I want you to picture the Riska family with the chair and with the yelling, with the mom trying to coach her child. And it didn't feel at all magical or holy, but it was our life. And so I bring this story to you as we head into Christmas or what you do celebrate during this season. And I want you to remember that you're not the only one that is not experiencing the magic that everybody else seems to be experiencing. And that if you're experiencing an alternate reality such as this, then that's fine. You're not alone. So I hope you kind of laugh along with me in that because, like I said, do we really have any other option? Now let's hear about our guest, Billie. So Billie describes herself as a caregiver, life coach, speaker, and writer. She also volunteers as a support group facilitator for We Are Brave Together, which is a nonprofit that supports moms caring for children with unique needs. And you're going to hear more about that in this episode, so ears up on that. She writes a weekly blog for her website, Conversations for Change. And she's talking about the real topics. She's talking about the things that I think we all want to hear more about as special needs moms, because it's the actual experience that we're having, not the cleaned up, pretty version of it, but it's like the real things of life, of grief, of mental illness, of gratitude, of marriage, of caregiving, and the highs and the lows. She is somebody that I look up to as a mom who has journeyed before me and is showing what is possible as a mom who takes back control of her life. That acknowledges what we feel like we've lost, but then actually changes her relationship to that. And we talk about her transformation as part of this episode. I think that gets us ready to listen to Billie. So let's get right into the conversation. Welcome, Billie, to the Special Needs Mom podcast.
Hello. Hi, Kara. How are you doing today?
I'm so good. A lot better than yesterday. Those of you listening don't know this, but Billie and I were actually supposed to be talking yesterday, but my darling wasn't feeling well at school. And so I thought I'm going to go check it out, see what's going on. So I had to cancel last minute on Billie, which is very in line with the things we're going to talk about today. But thank you so much for your flexibility. And I'm so glad we get to be together today.
Oh, me too. And, flexibility is a superpower that we must practice as moms with special kids. I mean, that's a huge superpower. I have learned to embrace flexibility and adaptability, and I own them daily.
It's funny that you say that because Prior to this, I would not have described myself as a flexible person. Some people who used to work with me might have experienced that and maybe didn't like it so much. Well, I want to hear a little bit about a day in the life of Billie and really just a snapshot of your family. So you are a mother to two, but I would love to hear in your own words how you describe your family and kind of where you are at in life.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Well, I've been married to my husband for over 30 years now. We have two fantastic, fabulous children. My son, Justin, is 24. He is typical, undecided in what he's doing in his life, but a wonderful human being.
The poor guy, though, like I don't know if he went to college or not, but like, I mean, that's a hard time of COVID. Sorry to interrupt, but like,
No. He is figuring it out. Yes, he came home during, COVID was kind of crummy. Now he's transferring, going back to school again and probably moving out soon, which is bittersweet for me because as an older sibling, he is a huge help to his sister. My daughter, Emily, is 22. Emily is undiagnosed yet. She does not have a diagnosis. She is globally delayed. She does have severe disabilities and requires full care for everything. So she's non-ambulatory and nonverbal. This has always been a challenge, I think. It's never easy when you're dealing with a disability, but as she's gotten older and gotten through puberty in the teens, it's actually become more challenging when I thought it would be easier. Things definitely look a little more challenging now that she has aged out of school because she is 22 now. So my life looks a little different this year than it did even a couple of years ago. It's very much similar to what it was like during COVID when services were shut down here in California. It's very similar to that. She is out of the home about 20% of the time at a day program. She goes to a 5-hour day program. And the rest of the time she's with me. And so sometimes the behaviors and sometimes her sauciness, I say she's been extra saucy and spicy lately, has been a little bit tough for my nerves. And I think I'm pretty well grounded and do a really good job of managing my thoughts. And I have done that work and I've put in that work, but I have in a challenging season for myself, even with all the resources and tools in my tool chest. I've still struggled in this last season, probably since August has been really challenging for me.
You didn't mention yet, but I will have mentioned in the intro that you're also a coach. And so your facility with being able to be aware of what's going on and to kind of process yourself through these challenges is probably at a pretty high level. Yet that doesn't mean that we all of a sudden magically arrive at like everything's always figured out. There's always new layers. And as you just described, like your circumstances have changed. Like Emily's home a lot. And so therefore it's like it's opened the gate, showing you where there's still need for you to either develop support and, of course, how to work it in your mind in a way that actually works and empowers you. So
definitely. And I do believe that thought work is probably, I think coaching is one of the best things that any mom can engage in is getting help, whether it's a therapist, whether it's a coach, whether it's in whatever form you want to take that. I do believe that coaching is critical because so often it's hard for us to detach from our circumstances. Like we get stuck in them. And I felt myself spiraling in my circumstances lately, like spiraling and just going head down in them. And I was okay with that. Like I'm in it. I'm owning it. I'm going to just sit and wallow in pity.
There is a time for that, right? Like there is a time for that. Yes.
But knowing thought work, I know it's not healthy to stay here. I cannot stay here. So what has got to change? And the last couple of weeks I've been working on solutions because it's been difficult. The holidays are such a struggle, I think, for so many. Our kids are home. Even if they're in school, they're out of school for like 2 weeks. They're at home. They don't go to school. It's vacation time. Vacation time.
Well, that's the reason why I reached out to you and I was like, Billie, now's the time. Please, will you come right away? Because usually I record interviews a lot more in advance, but you had shared, and I want to talk about this post, I guess, on Instagram. I think it was a reel that you had just very candidly shared that you were tired. Your daughter grinds her teeth, and this is a normal occurrence for her. And at this moment in time, you had just expressed, it's really grating on me. I'm tired. And so now that we have you here, share with us a little bit more about that moment. Where were you at, and how would you describe what was going on for you?
Well, she had been sick for the past week. And so she was cooped up in the house. We were stuck together inside. And she was agitated, not well enough to go to her day program, shall I say, but too well to be stuck at home. I guess that's the way to put it.
Yeah.
And it was quite a struggle that she was agitated. So she was grinding and she was whining, and it was incessant. It was nonstop. And I have tools. I tell moms, have earbuds. Earbuds are life-changing. Noise-canceling headphones are life-changing, not for your child, but for you. Sometimes to escape that stemming and noises that often our kiddos make constantly, and teeth grinding. I got so much feedback about teeth grinding. I didn't realize it's something that a lot of moms experience with their kids. And I thought it was just a rare thing. But apparently my daughter is not a unicorn. There are a lot of disabled kids out there grinding their teeth.
My disabled child does not, but some of my other children do. And it is the kind of thing where I'm just like, stop. Like, it is hard to be with. And I think I reached out to you and like, wow, that is hard to be with. And so you have tools, yet you were still, it wasn't sufficient at the time. So bring us back to where you're at and kind of what prompted you to share.
My tools were insufficient, and I don't usually post when Emily's in the background. I try to, make quiet videos. Like when you do a podcast, you don't want a lot of background noise. You want it to sound good. I'm like, you know what? No, I need to post this right now, how I'm feeling in this moment. I'm feeling defeated. I feel down. I'm struggling. And maybe it's good to put that out there so that other moms in this circumstance know that, hey, she's got her act together and she's still struggling. And I say act together in quotes because,
yeah.
she's
I
a
felt that when you just said
she's
that.
a writer.
Yes.
Doesn't she know how to fix this? Doesn't she have tools? Sometimes all the tools in the toolboxes are not going to keep you from having those moments.
Yeah.
So in that moment, I just had to embrace it. Like I just had to roll with it. You got to flow like water. This was happening. So let's put it out there for the world to see. Let's not hide it in a box under the bed. And maybe it'll help somebody else not feel alone when they experience that. And so I just decided to get real.
What did you experience after you shared that?
I actually felt better after I shared it. I mean, it's amazing that just releasing that emotion and that frustration that I was going through, which isn't that like journaling and therapy and coaching, helps you release some of those thoughts that when they're trapped in their head, they're poisonous. But just getting it out there and owning that I'm not loving my child a lot right now. I'm not loving her behaviors. I'm not loving the job of being a parent at this moment. And that's okay.
Yeah.
I still embrace my child. I know this isn't going to change. I cannot make her stop. But I can own that this moment is happening, and just maybe it'll comfort somebody else and it'll help me move past this moment. And it really did. I think there was a shift in my mood by just owning it. And then I got to thinking, what else can I do to try to process this emotion?
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing the behind the scenes, because I think, like you said, I think it's so valuable when we as moms watch another mom who we know, like we respect, right? Like I respect you, who you are as a mom. Not only are you more seasoned than I am in terms of your daughter's 24, mine is 13, well, my middle son. So there's that, but also like, I know you've done your own work to really figure out how to be a mom that has her own life that's functioning and a child who has a lot of needs that you are fulfilling or figuring out how to fulfill. So thank you so much for being an example of what is possible and an example of what is completely normal and okay. I want to talk about the episode that you've called Whimsy to Woeful. And I read this and I felt it so strong because you described the experience of going from a super high, which was being in the presence of other women just like us. So this is through We Are Brave Together. So going from that high to not so much of a high, and we will say that it was a lot of laundry and a lot of vomit and those things that really none of us would choose. So I just feel like those two moments were in such contrast. So I want to talk about those. But before I do, because I mentioned We Are Brave Together, you are kind of an OG, right? Are you like an original?
Oh, I would love to say I was an OG. No, I've been with We Are Brave Together for about 1.5 years now.
Okay.
I think they just celebrated their 5th year anniversary, but I think I'm on the cutting edge. I think we were very low in numbers when I joined, and now We Are Brave Together is just out there and being seen, and moms are being seen and they're being heard, and they are getting resources and respite and opportunities to attend low-cost retreats. I think at a much more substantial rate than they were 5 years ago. I mean, Jessica Pate has really grown that organization organically, and moms are finding it, and they are finding it is such a useful resource, especially when you're in the trenches. Like sometimes you just need to know that you are not alone.
This is the thing that Jessica shouts from the rooftops, and
Yes.
It is just so beautiful. And I wanted to mention it specifically here because you talked about the low-cost retreats. And so this episode is going to be going live on December 14th, 2022. And December 15th, 2022, there is going to be a retreat that opens for registration that's going to be happening in February in San Diego. And guess what? I will be the speaker that gets to support the community at that group. So I thought I have to mention this so that anybody that is listening has the opportunity to firstly sign up for We Are Brave Together, which is a free organization and truly a supportive support group, because there is a distinction. I'm talking about that next week. And also it's access to so many more resources, like you said. And so one of the resources is these retreats. I just went on one in November. I'm going to say that it was life-changing in the sense that to be able to experience a level of relationship and community as a special needs mom, even though I have what I have with this podcast and everything that I do, this was different and it was so beautiful. And so I'm shouting, just like Jessica, to sign up, to go a little beyond your comfort zone and to consider coming on this retreat. Anything else you would add there?
I highly recommend that. I say run, don't walk to wearebravetogether.org and sign up so you're on the mailing list, so you know what's happening in the community. Join the Facebook group and take advantage of that resource, because We Are Brave Together offers courses and classes. And I took a 6-week dialectical behavioral therapy course that would have cost hundreds of dollars to take on my own, and they offered that free or low cost. She has so many resources. If you have older children and you're looking for sex education type courses, there's transition courses from childhood to adulthood. There's just so many resources. And her community is just a community that's uplifting. It is not your standard non-supportive support group.
Yeah.
And
Okay,
when I went to work with her, that was one of the questions. I said, I don't want to work with a support group where everybody's just going around complaining and not really solving problems. I'm a problem solver. I don't want to sit in my problems. I want to solve my problems.
Precisely. I am 100% on board. So the link to We Are Brave Together website is going to be on the show notes. So it's very easy. You can even just Google We Are Brave Together. It pops right up. And to sign up, all you have to do is put your email in. Again, it's free. So there's really not a lot of reasons not to do this. Okay. So I wanted to make sure we got that plug in there. Back to this post, this whimsy to woeful, where you went from the high of the experience of being literally in gratitude at a Thanksgiving event to home with your daughter who was sick, and to a night that was expected to be filled, right? It's like, I I could just feel that. I could feel that when I was reading your writing. I could feel the distinction of what I know my body does when I'm headed into that experience where I know that it's going to require me to dig deep. And so I think something that this post really gave me words for is that disappointments are a constant threat. Yes, this is true for everybody in their life, but I think it's a unique experience having our children have the situations that they have. And so I wanted to hear a little bit about kind of your thoughts again on this, as well as how you cope with this. So knowing that at any given moment, Emily could have a need that is going to ask more than you probably want to give at the time. How do you cope with this? What's your process and what do you bring to this?
Wow, that is, I can feel those feelings that I had that night when that happened. I had this day, we had gone to a Friendsgiving for We Are Brave Together. It was our first annual Friendsgiving for moms here in Southern California. And I was just on a high when I left that. Like we had, all written about our gratitude for something in our lives, and we shared it in a gratitude circle. And all these moms kind of understand and get you. And I was just like riding on that high of fellowship and connection. And I came home and my house was still beautiful and quiet, and my daughter wasn't home, and everything was grand. And then she started coughing right before bed. And then it started. She got very ill. She was up, all the things, all the bodily fluids we deal with often in the rare world came upon us. And I could just feel that emotion take over, that sinking feeling of dread and disappointment. And you know what I did? I sat in that disappointment. There was nothing to do with it. I didn't try to fix it. I didn't try to push it away. I didn't try to go drink a bottle of vino to get over it. I sat on the floor with my daughter, surrounded in our dirty and clean and mixed towels, and owned that this was going to be a night when I was going to be disappointed. I was going to have to show up as her mom, tired, frustrated. And it was okay. It's okay to be disappointed. Sometimes you have to embrace the good with the bad and know that tomorrow's a new day. And I think that's the beauty of having gratitude. I will share this. Gratitude practice is not, a lot of people say, well, I write down 3 things that I'm grateful for every day, and it hasn't changed anything. Mm-hmm. But for me, it really has, because I think as long as I have something to be grateful, no matter how bad the storm is, if I cannot see the sun above me and I am in a dark pit like I felt that night, being grateful for anything in that moment, if I could conjure up any gratitude, I'm grateful that I have a tub that I could soak my daughter in. I'm grateful that I have clean towels that I can just grab a stack and clean up with. I'm grateful that I had a wonderful day, so I was energized and fueled and ready for this. That gratitude reminds me that the sun is still up there. I may not be able to see the sun. I may not believe it's still up there, but I know it is when I cling on to that gratitude.
And I think that is so powerful, knowing that the sun is still up there, even when it's covered with clouds. I guess the word that is coming to my mind, it gives you hope. It gives you the hope and confidence that this is a day, and that there will be a day when those clouds part and you get to experience the warmth of the sun again. We'll go with the same analogy. Sounds like such a slight difference, right? Because you're still in the clouds. You're still literally in the experience of being in the gloomy, dark clouds. But the difference of knowing that the sun is there, which is the gratitude, and not, is huge. Wow.
It's huge because no storm ever lasts. Think about it. A storm never lasts. The hard times are never going to last forever. But sometimes when you're in it, like I shared earlier, there's times when I chose to wallow. I wallow a little bit in there. I want to hang around and play in the storm and, get struck by lightning a few times.
I distinctly remember a season that I was in. It was, let's just say it was winter, because the clouds were coming a lot. I was stuck in the clouds, and I remember distinctly thinking it would never end.
Yeah.
This is years ago. This is early on in my journey. And actually, it was my mom who reminded me that this is a valley and there's always peaks and valleys.
And that's life.
It helped me to realize oh, okay. Like that didn't mean it was going to end quickly. Like I still might be on the valley for a while, but at some point it's going to start to go up a little bit. And just again, that's the hope. That's the sun behind the clouds. And that made all the difference.
So I guess that's how I get through disappointment. There's always hope that things will change. It's not going to stay the same. She's not going to be sick forever. You're not going to be, in this moment. It's just a moment. Somebody shared with me one time that imagine you go to a movie theater and there's all these different movies playing. And one might be a drama and one might be a tragedy and one might be a comedy. Life is like that. You're in a movie theater and there's always going to be a different movie playing. You may not have control of which movie's playing, but there's always going to be a different one down the road that might be better. Might be the lighthearted comedy or the love story that you need or whatever.
I like that. I like that like visual of all the different options.
Yeah.
I'm sure that you haven't always been as good as you are now at processing disappointment and being in your emotion. The face she made was pretty funny.
Oh, sorry.
No, and I'm there with you. If you look back at your journey, what do you feel like you lose when you resist processing this emotion, or what's at cost, the consequence of not being able to do this?
Oh my goodness. There's so many consequences. Our bodies, when you injure yourself and get physical pain, you have a reaction, like you get a sprained ankle or a broken bone. Unprocessed emotions are doing damage too, just because you can't see it. They are doing the damage. And if you are not processing your emotions, you're going to buffer. I use the word buffer. For years, I buffered at the end of my day. As soon as I got everybody in bed, I had to get relief from my day. I had to escape my day. And that's really because I wasn't processing things as they came up. I was just shoveling, pushing it off, compartmentalizing all the stress, the anxiety, overwhelm, just put it in a little corner. And once everybody's asleep, I'm still not going to deal with it. I'm just going to turn on Bravo. I'm going to have some popcorn and a glass of wine. And that's how I'm going to process my emotions right there.
Or that's how you're going to not process your emotion, right?
Exactly.
That's how
not
you're going
process
to deal
my
with
emotion.
it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that doesn't deal with all that did is I still had the anger. I still had the disappointment. I still had the overwhelm. I was still exhausted. And now I had high blood pressure. I weighed 40 pounds more than I do right now. And I wasn't rested. And I was not a great mom because I would wake up exhausted after sleeping. I just wasn't refueling my body because I wasn't processing my emotions. And when you don't process it, you buffer with something. Everybody buffers with something. And we all buffer regardless, whether you process your emotions or not. You're going to buffer sometimes. Sometimes that's the tool you choose. Like, be like, okay, today was a really bad day. And I know that this is probably not the best choice, but I might have a glass of wine tonight because I feel like that's this situation calls for a glass of wine. And I will process this emotion in the morning in a journal. And that's okay.
Yes.
But the point is you have to process those emotions. You have to feel the feels, because if you don't, you are walking around injured. You're walking around injured, just like somebody walking around with a broken leg or a broken arm. It's just because it's not visible doesn't mean it's not there. And I think so many moms are.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, I think that everybody listening to this, no matter where we're at the journey, I think we know that we know the difference of when this is stuck inside of us, because I think that's when we feel the chaos and the out of controlness. And the out of controlness is oftentimes, I've also heard it described when you're trying to suppress or hold down emotion, like through buffering, it's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. We know that baby's going to slip out of our hands eventually. We just don't know when. And so that leaves us to picture yourself like gripping onto this ball, like trying to like balance it all, and just being so tightly strung to having to keep it down and not able to eventually that guy's going to slip out of your hands. What was the shift for you that had you lean into figuring this out, right? So you described it before where you were buffering, you were like padding your emotions so you didn't have to feel them with wine and popcorn and Bravo. What started the shift for you?
Oh, wow. It really had nothing to do with thought work. That's for sure. I really just had the intent of losing some weight. So I joined a weight loss group that happened to be led by a life coach. And I started losing weight. I learned intuitive eating. Intuitive eating is, eating when you're hungry, not eating when you're not hungry. Wow. Really brain like rocket science here. If you're not hungry, don't eat. So then when you're tired at the end of the day and upset, but you're not eating because you're not hungry, then what
Yeah.
the heck are you supposed to do? Like, what do I do now? I feel terrible. I want to go eat some cookies or popcorn and drink wine, but I'm not hungry. That's really how it started. It really started with just me working on my eating habits. And as
Mm-hmm.
I lost weight and learned about processing my feelings, like they gave us tools, take 60 seconds when you feel really upset or feel overwhelmed. Just sit with overwhelm for 60 seconds. It'll pass. When you have an urge to drink a bottle of wine and eat a bag of Oreos, sit with that feeling for 90 seconds and see what happens. How does your body feel? How does that feel in your body? Do you feel agitated? Do you feel your heart rate increase? Do you feel this urge that it's going to kill you if you sit here and don't get that cookie and that wine right now? You know what? You didn't die by not feeling that urge. I'm still here. So just practicing through weight loss
Yeah, I
was
love that.
really how I started on my journey. And I thought, wow, if this works for losing weight, other things were getting better in my life. Like I was
Mm-hmm.
having better communication with my husband. I learned to be less reactive because every emotion, I didn't have to react to my emotions. And there's
Yeah.
a great thing. Is the house on fire or is the fire alarm just going off? Like, did the alarm just go off because somebody didn't change the batteries or is the
Mm-hmm.
house really on fire? And when you stop meeting every urge and every emotion that comes in as if it's like a fire, 5-alarm fire, and you stop for a minute and give your body time just to process, it's like, maybe just I need to change the batteries in the smoke alarm. Maybe that's what needs to happen here. Maybe the house isn't on fire.
You said that so quick, but I want to make sure people got that because it took me a second. So the distinction between the fire alarm going off and the house actually being on fire. So being able to basically, it's like stop and evaluate to think what's actually going on. Because in some cases, when let's say we're feeling a certain feeling, right? Because feelings are all designed to move our bodies into actions. Like that's why our
Yes.
body does these feelings, right? It's like so that then we can move into action. So when we're having a feeling based on a thought is kind of how you and I both align
Yes.
in terms of how it works, then we would desire then to act predictably we would go act. And so
Take
when
an
we're
action.
thinking that the fire alarm is going off, therefore there's a threat and danger, we might, let's say, run out of the house. But if we take a second to evaluate that thought, right? This is you're nodding. I was like, okay, I'm getting it right.
Yes, correct. Yes.
Take a second to evaluate, but like there's no
Correct.
smoke. There's no smoke. I don't see a fire. Let me go check the fire alarm. And basically, I think that would be the equivalent of questioning a thought. Be like, is this really
Questioning
true?
it. Yes. Taking a pause. I think there's a lot of power in pausing. We are quick to react. My daughter's throwing a temper fit. She's upset. I automatically go straight to overwhelm. I get anxious. I worry about what other people think if I'm in public.
Yeah.
Rather than just taking a pause and say, does anybody really care? Look around. Is anybody even noticing? Instead of going straight to panic, I can just pause, take a breath. Okay, no, we're okay. She's a little saucy, but it's okay. Everything's okay.
I love that you model this basically pausing. And really what I hear in the way that you just process that and kind of put words to your experience out there in the wild is that you just really slow it down. Like you slow it down enough to where you can have that split second of questioning, wait, do I really need to panic right now? And so I just think you've done such a good job of giving us something to look at in terms of what this actually looks like for reals, right? These aren't just pretty ideas. Like you actually do this work.
And that's why I write about it. And I didn't used to write about it. I started out just coaching. And part of my coaching was to do a weekly blog. But as I started writing this blog, I felt like, wow, there's so much valuable information that people need to hear. To not feel so alone, like to understand that it's okay to have these feelings. I think society makes bad emotions and bad feelings are so negated. And on one side, they're negated where we're not allowed to feel them. You're supposed to be happy and upbeat and put a smile on your face, even though you haven't slept in 6 months with your infant who's sick or whatever. You're in the hospital every other week because your child's having seizures and they can't figure out what's going wrong. These are real circumstances that a lot of moms are in.
Yeah.
And they're not going to be happy and giddy and, don't paste a smile on your face, own it, but also find ways to embrace those emotions and release them. Releasing is a big part of it, releasing that energy into the universe. And I do believe gratitude is key to that, but I also think just sometimes getting it out of your head, just writing, sharing, which is once again, coaching and counseling and journaling. And people don't like the gray word.
Totally. Well, it's like your writing is also, I think, like my podcast, where it's like you write where, yes, awesome. The side benefit is it helps other people. Your blog is amazing. And I definitely recommend it for all of you listeners. So we'll put the link, of course, in the show notes. But it's like when we have to slow down and write the blog, or in my case, plan the podcast, I feel like we're the first beneficiary. And then like the side benefit is everybody else gets to experience it. So
100%. I say writing my blog is really my therapy now. It's become therapy. When I think of something to take off my plate, I'm like, yeah, I'm not taking that off my plate. I'll figure out a way to still do my blog every week. And the more I do it, I think the more vulnerable I've been able to be and the more open. At first, I think I was very superficial, doing mostly like kind of like coaching, but not coaching from a place of experience and stories, and really putting the coaching into practice. Like I truly practice what I preach.
Totally.
So
and I think it's tricky because when you're a new coach, you're like, okay, I have to like look like I know what I'm doing.
Yes.
And so that means I look like I have it handled, which is not vulnerable and real, right? And so I think it's hard to feel like you get the balance right, because you don't want to show up as a total like mess.
Like, look at that train wreck. I'm going to follow her.
Yeah. So I don't know. I've struggled with this as well, obviously.
Sometimes we are train wrecks.
Yeah. Precisely. Okay. And the acceptance that also is part of our experience. It does not mean anything has gone wrong. It means we're a human having a human experiences.
It's a human experience.
And it's really empowering not to try to kind of manage those away. So thank you again for being a model of that. I want to talk about something else I found on your blog. And it's really the idea of getting over the discomfort of caring for ourselves. So you specifically wrote about this, and it's a little bit of a longer excerpt, but I'm going to read the whole thing because I want to get the behind the scenes of you, the person that wrote this. So the blog post is called "Choosing Guilt Improved My Mental Health." Good title, because you're like, wait, what? Here's the quote. As I learned the importance of caring for myself, I began to do more things that made me feel guilty. The emotion of guilt was not a fun feeling to have. It was uncomfortable and unpleasant, but I felt better. It felt lighter than feeling resentment. The guilty feeling began to dissipate faster as I practiced accepting the emotion rather than trying to judge or avoid it. I was able to process the guilt more quickly. I believe that as I learned how to love and care for myself, the feeling of guilt was replaced with self-compassion. Oh, so much here. Backing up a second, one of the things that I see is the complete rejection of moms being willing to care for themselves. And yes, it's because we don't have time. And yes, it's because we don't have enough support. But guess what? We still have to move past that. So that's a whole nother conversation. But a lot of times it's because they have quote unquote evidence that it doesn't make a difference, that they don't feel better when they stop and take care of themselves. And I think you've done such a good job articulating the reason why, is because I think that when we stop and do something that we think is going to care for ourselves, we expect that it's going to feel good. And we expect that it's going to feel good right away. And so I think you just did such a good job of basically telling us, in order for you to move past resentment and like even try to take care of yourself, you had to go through this tunnel of guilt. And we all know guilt does not feel very good. So walk us through again, just that time that you took this on. Give us again the insight of what this was like for you in more detail.
Well, I am a natural caregiver. Like that is innately who I am. I do care for others. I care about other people. Since I was a child, that is part of my personality. caring for others, compassion for others. But at some point, that care wasn't going on to myself. And when you're not caring for yourself, you are missing self-compassion. You're missing that piece of the puzzle of having compassion for yourself. I didn't have any self-compassion. I had resentment, a whole lot of resentment. And it was stuff I was choosing to do. Nobody was making me do anything. That's the thing I think a lot of times we think, oh, they're making me do this. No, I'm choosing to care for my daughter, and I have to own that. And I could turn her over to the state. I mean, this may sound like a really harsh thing to say on your
No,
podcast.
it's so important to say, yes.
I could turn her over to the state. I don't have to take care of my daughter. They could put her in a home. She could go into the foster system, whatever. I'm choosing to do that. So that's an empowering thought for myself. Like, I am choosing to take care of my daughter. I am a badass mom who takes care of her daughter. However, I'm not going to be able to do this if I don't do some things for me. Like, I just won't be able to do this. It's not sustainable. And the first time you start to say, I would like to take a class on Tuesday night, a line dancing class. That's how it started for me. I did a Tuesday night line dance class. I was going to be gone from 6 to 7 at night. My husband was going to have to hold down the fort. I felt guilty every single week at 5 o'clock. Oh, I should just cancel. Emily's had a cough. Justin has this at school tomorrow. I should help him with his homework. But every time I pushed that thought away and did it anyway, feeling guilty, I felt better. I felt happier. I was getting my needs met. I was showing up for myself, not just everybody else. And the more you practice that, it feels good. Guilt feels good. Where resentment, if I stayed home week after week and made the choice to just take care of my family and resent myself, I'm not resenting them, I'm resenting myself for choosing everybody else but me. The resentment is on me, and that does not feel good. Resentment is not a feeling that feels good in the body. It feels horrible. It's harder to process than guilt. A lot harder to process because it builds. It kind of festers underneath the surface. And the more you deny doing anything for yourself, you just get pissier and pissier and pissier. That's what I call it, pissier and pissier. And pretty soon, like, you want to blow. And like, you're just mad at yourself. I think it just creates this anger within yourself and disappointment within yourself. And it makes you a martyr, and it kind of makes you a victim of your life. A life that you've chose. Now I'm a victim of my own life that I have chose. Whereas if I take that time and I'm doing stuff, I'm like, yeah, I feel a little guilty. I'm going to go to this retreat for We Are Brave Together in January. I might feel a little guilty, but I'm going to do it with guilt. So the philosophy is, if it's going to be guilt or resentment, choose the guilt every single time, because guilt is a much easier and healthier emotion, I feel, to process for me personally. And I think moms will find it helps them.
Would you say that it sounds to me like guilt's a gateway to the next thing beyond that? Because I'm sure, you got to experience line dancing. Your pictures online are so cute, by the way. They have these little uniforms, like your little vest. They're so cute. I was like, oh my gosh, I love that you get so much joy from that. Anyhow, guilt is a gateway, right? So like, clearly you weren't feeling guilt as you were tapping your feet out on the floor with your music, right? You were feeling something different, but you had to go through that gauntlet of guilt, we'll call it.
Yes.
And you were willing to do that. And like, you had to feel uncomfortable and uncomfortable and uncomfortable until you didn't. And I love what you've said about resentment, because I think you nailed it in terms of it leads you towards that victim place. And then I think that the thing about resentment that was, as you were talking, I was like, oh, resentment's one of those ones that I think leads us, whether we resent someone else or ourselves, we feel powerless through that lens of resentment. And that's awful, right? Because when you feel powerless, you feel like you have no ability to change it. You have no awareness that you're choosing this when you feel resentment. So
you feel like you have no control over it.
Yes.
And that is how you get to self-compassion, is by choosing the guilt. Because then you're realizing I have needs too, and it's okay to meet my needs. And guilt just means you're doing something for yourself. Generally, that emotion comes up when you are choosing you over somebody else. And sometimes we need to choose us. We matter. I mean, choose me.
It's funny to say that, because I think about guilt, and I think about, because there could be some instances where perhaps is neglecting her child, there could be some guilt there. So we may not want to do that. But here's my theory is that in this community where we're talking, that's going to be a very, very, very small chance that the guilt is actually founded on actually being helpful. That is usually what you're saying, or it's exactly like you're saying it is actually, it's a constructed thing that is stopping you from doing the thing that is for yourself. You're only feeling guilty because you have a belief that says that that's not okay. You have to put somebody else first.
Yes.
And
it's not, and your child's being cared for. I'm not saying, oh yeah, go line dancing every Tuesday and leave your kid at home alone. No. That would be irresponsible.
So you said guilt kind of leads into the self-compassion. Is that what you said? Did I get it right?
Yeah, it's a step towards self-compassion. Usually when you make a decision where you feel guilty, it's because you're doing something for yourself.
There you go.
And as you do that, it builds compassion for yourself. You're developing, you're filling your own like kind of love tank.
Mm-hmm.
You are giving yourself a gift. And as you do that more, you actually become a better mom and caregiver. That has been my experience. And I would challenge anybody to try it for 90 days and see if they don't become better. Because I have a lot more patience when I get some time away to do something that refuels my soul. I've learned to get creative at practicing self-care with my daughter there. Like you can't always leave. And I think that's the other thing people need to realize. That not everybody can go to a line dancing class on Tuesday nights. That might not be an option for some of your moms. But there are things you can do even in your own home to give yourself that. And like I've shared, earbuds are a huge thing for me. I recommend every mom should have them. When you leave the hospital with a baby, they should just give you noise canceling headphones.
Issue your pair.
Like it should be like with those diapers and the formula packs. There should be like mom and dad, eye masks and earplugs.
I agree about the eye mask. I didn't discover the eye mask until like last year in all the hospitalizations. I was like, that was a game changer. Actually, I was like, I got to get these to more moms. And I thought about buying them in bulk because I could hand them out in my local area. Okay. Anyhow.
So, wow, I got off track there. I got so excited.
Man, I feel passionate apparently about that.
So I do too. And I only discovered eye masks maybe in the last 5 years. I'm like, wow, you can block out the light. So I can take like a power nap during the day. And it's like, it's nighttime. 5-minute meditations with your earphones.
Beautiful.
5 minutes of your favorite song. Put a song you love, a song from like your prom in 1980, whatever mine was. We won't even go there. 1980 something. Put on a song and just listen to it and drown out the noise of your environment. Those little things are compassion for yourself. And generally in 5 minutes, nothing terrible or catastrophe. No catastrophe will happen within a 5-minute period, generally. You can keep your eyes there, but let your mind go somewhere else. And I think we forget to daydream and we forget to visualize and just kind of escape because our jobs are hard. What we do is hard. I'm not diminishing the hardness and the depth of the challenges in our days. But we can still capture glimpses and times to kind of refuel and reconnect in really small bite-sized ways. It might not be 2 hours at the gym or line dancing classes, but we can, maybe get a walk around the block or just walk outside and let the sun hit your body. Take 5 minutes to journal. I really recommend a gratitude practice. If anyone has not tried that, I highly recommend a gratitude practice. And don't just write, I'm thankful for my dog and my cat and my kids. Write what you're thankful for about them. I'm grateful that my husband comes home on Tuesday nights and takes care of my daughter so that I can go line dancing. I'm grateful that I have a closet full of towels so that when emergencies come up, I am so blessed to have a closet full of towels and a washer and dryer. Whatever things, it can be little, but attach a meaning to that gratitude. And especially right now, because this is a tough season, the holidays are hard. They are not always, they don't look like the Hallmark movies in my house. I don't know, maybe they do in your house, but at my home, it doesn't.
They don't. No. I don't actually think that exists out in the world. I think we all forget.
If it does, I want to be invited.
Movies. But I think you're right. I'm so glad you mentioned that because again, this is planned timing on when I wanted to have you on, because I think that the gifts that you have offered us today, I think, are so immediately applicable to our lives heading into this season, heading into a season where a lot of our support structures go away. A lot of our expectations of what we wanted or the disappointments that we're going to experience are going to be right there. So we're going to get to practice this in real time. And so that's why I wanted to make sure that we got you in our ears to support us during this season.
And be okay with grieving right now. It's okay to grieve. There's a lot of grief during the holidays too. I mean, I have never had a good family picture. It's one of those things that I've always wanted, was this beautiful family, holiday card that I get in the mail from lots of people. I've already gotten like 5 this week. And it's just something that's never happened. And sometimes when that card comes from somebody with the picture perfect family, I grieve that loss and I own it and I grieve it. Grief isn't always about losing a person. There's a lot of grief in our journey as well. And it hits home sometimes during the holidays when maybe your child can't sit at the table with everybody else, or you have issues that, prevent you from sharing the holiday in the way you did as a child, or the traditions that you had in the past.
Yeah, and I want to mention an episode I did, actually. I think it's called Grief and Gratitude, something along those lines, but it's episode 119. So it's really recent. And it talks exactly about that. It talks about, actually, if you can't access gratitude, then likely there's something to grieve. And so it kind of guides you into the opportunity of being able to have both at the same time, which I think, society would have taught us that, like, you can't have both, that like one cancels out the other. And that's not the case. Actually, they learn to coexist and they make each other stronger.
It's a paradox of the two playing back and forth. Yes, that's a fabulous episode. I highly recommend it. That was a great episode.
So much goodness here. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm curious as to, what do you see as like your next step of where you want to grow, or what your mind's spinning up in terms of what you're working on in life?
Well, I'm writing more. I've been writing more and getting a lot more vulnerable. And I think my next step is really trying to build more awareness for the big, I call it the dam-sized gap for caregivers that we are facing right now. There is a dam-sized gap. Some of us have resources to get caregivers, but they are not available.
Yeah.
And I really want to, I don't know how I'm going to do it. It's a dream. This is a pipe dream in my future, is really just raising the value of what caregiving is and how important and vital it is. And raising our children takes a village. And when you don't have that village, it's very isolating and lonely. And I would love to work with others to try to close that gap, to fill in the needs for parents that just need more help in their home. I don't exactly know how that looks, but that's definitely been on my mind lately. And just sharing my struggles, continue to share the good, the bad, and the ugly, because it's all in there. I always say there's beauty in the grief and there's grief in the beauty. Like it coexists. There's always gratitude to cling to. I'm going to keep writing. I'm going to keep talking self-care and self-compassion. And I'm going to keep preaching that message. I'm going to keep working with We Are Brave together. In fact, I'm going to be hosting, I work in Long Beach and Orange County, California. So anybody in this area in Long Beach or Orange County that is interested in support, reach out to me. We will have our in-person meeting in January. That'll be posted soon. And I would love to have more moms just really seek out some connection and community.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. Couldn't recall exactly, but I was like, I think you are a facilitator for a group. And you guys, I feel like that's like hitting the lottery if you live in that area, to be able to be with you in this free support group. And so definitely, again, don't walk, run to sign up. Well, thank you so much for sharing. I genuinely really enjoyed it and also took a lot from it myself. So what are the other ways people can reach you if they want to connect with you?
You can go to my website where you will find my blog, which is conversation4change.com. I'm sure that'll be in the show notes. And BGShort68 is my Instagram account. And that's where you saw my reel.
Yes, exactly. Yes. It's great because you post when you have a new blog up there. And so we can be prompted to go ahead and visit that. Wonderful. And yes, that will all be in the show notes. Any last thoughts that you want to share that's on your heart or mind as we wrap up this episode?
I mean, I think I've probably said this several times, but have a lot of compassion for yourself. I think moms don't give themselves enough compassion. And I also think we don't give ourselves credit for all we do. We do so much. If you took out a piece of paper and wrote everything you did from the moment you put your feet on the floor till the moment you went to bed, the list would be exhaustive. It'd be huge. And give yourself credit for what gets done and give yourself forgiveness for what doesn't happen. Give yourself grace. Grace is so important. We give grace to others. Give it to yourself. And just be gentle with yourself, especially through the holidays. Just be gentle, be compassionate with yourself, and find a way just to take a moment to laugh or play or just have a little moment just to find some gratitude.
I can't think of a better way to send our people off into the holiday season than to take even just that nugget, but of course, this whole episode. So thank you so much for sharing your heart and your time with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been wonderful. I've enjoyed talking with you.
I wanted to pop back on here because I thought it was really important to mention the option that you have as a listener to this podcast, and that is taking the next step in looking into Pathway to Peace. And the reason this felt so important to tag on to the end of this episode is because Billie and I talked about, as you heard, the consequences of resisting emotions. And she talks about the skill of processing emotions. And this is something that we really focus on in this program that I'm offering. So if you feel like you understood what Billie was talking about, yet you don't have confidence that you can fully do what she references, I want you to consider that this would be a right next step for you to at least explore this. Give yourself the opportunity to step into that discomfort of doing something for yourself and potentially investing in yourself, and to explore what this would look like for you. To take that next step is access the show notes to this episode and click on the link to schedule a consultation. We'll see you over there. One more thing before we officially wrap up this show. Sometimes when I'm listening to podcasts, I have the experience of wanting more. I'm listening at the very end thinking, I sure wish that episode didn't end. I invite you, if you feel in any way the same way, I invite you to the Special Needs Mom podcast community, which is a free group that I host on Facebook, where we as a community of fellow moms who listen to this podcast and are experiencing life in similar shoes, get to talk to one another, get to share stories, get to actually interact. I hope you'll consider joining. See you over there.